Are we trying to be too happy? Are we focused too much on being happy? Hello, you all. I'm Diana Brienne, and I want to show you Grandma's porch. And you're all used to seeing Grandma's porch, and yet it's going to look a little different today. And the reason for it is we are having a lot of pollen. And so I've had to cover up everything on Grandma's porch. So I'm going to go out here and show you. I took sheets, bed sheets, and I covered up everything out here. And so Grandma's porch is covered up because we have so much pollen. The pollen that we get here is amazing. A lot of people have allergies. Fortunately, I don't. But they still can bother me a little bit with all the pollen. But yes, Grandma's porch is all covered up today. So we are going to talk in the kitchen, and as we often do. And I got to thinking today about, are we focused on being happy? Are we focused too much on being happy? You know, when I grew up, I remember looking at my grandma's early day photos. Now, my grandmother would be about 120 if she was still alive right now. And also my mother would be around 100, which is kind of hard to believe. And I'm 62. And so I remember looking at Grandma's photos, and I said to Grandma, how come you never smiled in any of the photos? And even to this very day, do not smile. And she replied to me, she said, you know, back in the Great Depression and all those years around that, if you smiled, people would think that you were rich, or they would be jealous of you for smiling. So people did not smile back then. They always gave a serious look. So often when we look back upon old-time photos, we won't see people smiling. And my mother kind of carried on that tradition to some degree. And often she wouldn't smile in a photo. And sometimes she did, but sometimes she didn't. Later in her life she did, but early on I don't think she did because, well, people were taught if they looked happy, then things were going too well for them. And that kind of made them a target for other people or from other people. And I kind of understand that. And back in Grandma's days, they were so busy on surviving. There was no focus on being happy. Now, I'm not saying that I would want to live my life like that, but it's very understandable in the generation and the generations that they grew up in, that, you know, their focus was on survival. Happiness was a byproduct. It was an extra, but it was not something that they had to focus on. Either they were happy or they weren't, but either way, they weren't focused on it. Well, as you all know, my channel is all about happiness and living your best life. And so I've always kind of been the yin or the yang to their yin or yang. And so that means that even though my grandmother grew up in a very more serious type of environment, I've kind of gone the other way, and I promote happiness and living your best life and reaching for the stars. Back then, they didn't do that, and it is so understandable. We have been so blessed with the opportunity in our society up to this point that we can reach for our dreams, we can reach for the stars. And so many people back then could not. And so often they just did not look all that happy. And I think that one of the issues today is that people are so consumed and so focused on being happy that, well, they forget what their blessings are right now. They're striving for more, reaching higher. You know, they're putting such heavy demands on themselves to be happy that many are not happy because they think something outside of them is going to make them happy. And so they put all these demands on themselves to keep reaching. And the pressure that they're putting on themselves to be happy often can make them unhappy. I think that a lot of people are unhappy because they put too much pressure to be happy. I don't think people are always happy. I think people go through difficult and challenging times where they're not happy. And yes, I believe in reaching for happiness. I want to be happy, and I am happy. And yet I've gone through periods of time where I'm not happy. So I think, when we go through an unhappy time, the worst thing that we can do for ourselves is to put the demand on ourselves to be happy. I think sometimes we do go through an unhappy period of time, and we have to work through things in order to get back to happiness. I think we're all striving for happiness. We're all striving to get there. We're all striving to be our best at some level. People are, have varying degrees and levels of striving for their happiness. And yet, I think we do put a lot of unnecessary demands upon ourselves, especially external demands. People want the newest car, the newest computer, the newest this, the newest dress, the newest pair of shoes, the newest hairdo, the newest whatever. And they have to work so hard to get it, when indeed what they already have may be perfectly good enough. And so I think that people are putting themselves under a tremendous amount of pressure to have external happiness. And I truly believe that happiness really starts internally. And putting unnecessary demands upon ourselves, especially externally and even internally at times, I think can do more damage than good. It can hold us back. We can feel, what's wrong with us? Why are we not happy? Everybody else is happy. Everybody else is smiling. And I think that that's not necessarily so. A lot of people are smiling because, just like Grandma thought she shouldn't smile, a lot of people feel like they should smile. When we look at everyone's photographs on social media, everyone is smiling. Back in Grandma's days, everyone was not smiling. If they had social media, no one would be smiling back then. So I just think that we're putting too many demands upon ourselves to be happy. And I believe in happiness. I strive for happiness. I set my life up for happiness. And yet I realize I don't want to put so many demands upon myself to be happy that I become unhappy. And so I believe that there are times and periods of time that people are unhappy. And I personally believe that's okay, as long as they continue to get through it and reach for happiness again at some point in their life. If you go through a challenging and difficult time and you've just lost your job and you don't know what to do, you might not be very happy. So to put that pressure to be happy in an unhappy moment may not be the right thing to do. Sometimes we have to feel that emotion so that we can correct whatever's going on and maybe go out and apply for another job or look for another job or whatever. So I think just putting such demands upon ourselves to be happy is sometimes just a bit much. And although I strive for happiness, I promote happiness, I believe in happiness, I also believe in not putting such heavy demands on ourselves to be happy all the time. From my house to yours, may God bless you, and I hope to talk to you soon again. Bye-bye.